Everybody's voting for the friendly voice of radio, the people's choice. Music, weather, sports, and news, it's radio. The people choose. Everybody's swinging to the swinging voice of radio, the people's choice. Big fry, small fry, dawn to dawn, it's radio that turns them on.
The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Now, John, how many times I have to tell you, maybe not the best, but not the worst, but we're certainly on the radio. Hey, everybody, it's been a long time being off the air. It feels good to be in the studio, sitting in the chair tonight. We got also a great guest tonight. We got Marc Cushman. He's the guy who wrote the book about the original Star Trek and so many other great books. Tonight, we're going to be talking about robert-culp-i-spy and how the series even happened and some of the episodes of I Spy. You know, that was one of my favorite shows growing up as a teenager. Couldn't wait to get home to watch I Spy. It's one of the very first shows that traveled the whole world, you know, on location. And one of the very first ones that actually used microphones, you know, hidden in the clothing. So it was way advanced of its time. And if it wasn't for I Spy, we wouldn't have a lot of shows that we have today. Mark will be on right after this.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
Boy, thunder this time of year. Hey, Mark, how you doing, my friend? It's been a long time since I've had you on the show.
Hi, Gary. Just a couple months. I think you, me, and Vic Mignogna did this a few months ago. And but you've been away.
Oh, yeah.
It's great to have you back.
Well, it feels good to be out of where I've been sitting. I'll tell you, people, I injured myself. I've been pretty much confined to bed for like 5 weeks. And you know what? That's like being in prison. You know, you see the whole world go by and you can't do anything about it. Hey, Mark, I Spy, Robert Culp. You know, he was like one of my idols. And, you know, I got to know him, sadly. Didn't get to know him very well, but got to know him a few months before his death. And I'll tell you, he was a very interesting, actually, after you got through the crust, a very lovable person.
Like a lot of people in Hollywood or entertainment or politics or just about anything, really, there was definitely a crust. That was a good way to say it, because you know, he'd learned to be kind of withdrawn sometimes, because he was a very sensitive person. He was a writer as well as an actor, and he had a big heart. So, you know, he had two sides of his personality. There was Robert and there was Bob. And I interviewed him. I went out to his house probably about 7, 8 times. But we did probably another 20 interviews over the phone while I was putting that book together. And I always, sometimes he would call and he'd say, "Hi, Mark, it's Robert." And, okay, he's going to be a little withdrawn today in this interview. And then days later, I'd get a phone call, I'd pick it up and say, "Hey, Mark, it's Bob." And it was an entirely different guy. And it was Kelly Robinson. When it was Bob, it was Kelly Robinson. The big toothy grin, kind of hip, kind of cool, great sense of humor. and so forth. And Robert was kind of the method actor, the guy who came out of New York and studied method acting and was on live TV in the 1950s and was a very serious, brooding actor/writer. And Bob was Kelly Robinson, just the guy that was the light of the party. And he would go back and forth between these two people. And I'm not trying to imply he had a split personality, because he was there. It was him. Both of them were absolutely him. But it was just a different mood and a different energy level that you would get from him.
Well, I hate to say it, Kelly Robinson was probably half of his, makeup as a human. And you know what? If you watch every other show, that he's ever been in, you could actually see Kelly Robinson in it. I mean, seriously, the way he acted, how he responded, his facial, I mean, was it America's Greatest Hero? To me, it was almost like watching Kelly Robinson even in that, the way he, conducted himself acting.
Sure. And, well, because, see, Kelly had that same thing. Culp wrote those scripts. He wrote the first bunch of I Spies. He co-created the show. He invented the lingo between him and Bill Cosby. The whole tone of the show really came from him more than anybody else. And Bill then followed the lead. But the writer-producers, Friedkin and Fine and Leonard, they were kind of following Culp's lead as far as what the show was and the sound of it and the tone of it. But if you think of it, for people who really know the show and love the show and remember it, Kelly had two sides of his personality, too. I mean, when he was around Bill most of the time, when he was around Scotty, he was just fun-loving. They were fun. They would make a joke out of the worst situations, the famous locked rooms, everything. But there were episodes where Kelly was brooding, where he was really dark, and you would see the dark side of that secret agent, the one who could kill somebody in the name of his government, and then walk away from it all and say, I don't want to do this anymore. And Scotty would have to go find him in some bar somewhere. And so, Culp kind of put both of those sides of his personal makeup into that character. And it was a very, we weren't used to that on TV back then, to have a character that wasn't one-dimensional. I mean, this guy was, there were two sides of him, and both of them were authentic, both of them were honest, and both of them were the same person, but two different points of entry.
Oh, yeah. What I liked about it, compared to like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and all those other shows, that they had a little bit of comedy always in it between,
Yeah.
And that's what made the show interesting. It made it more realistic. And one of my favorite episodes is Room with a Rack.
Oh, yeah. Now, that's a dark one. But at the end of it, you're right. When Scotty finds him and they're trying to get him out of there and everything, it's the humor comes in of these two guys that truly love each other, but very dark because Kelly's been tortured and he's having back to the torture, and he's just, isn't that the one where he gets in a bullfighting ring and he gets terrorized and he runs and has to jump over the wall and everything? He's trying to impress this girl, and he just totally loses it because of this torture that he had gone through. And Solemn Jens, was that her name?
Yeah.
Wonderful actress.
Hey, Mark. Mark.
Yeah.
Why don't I hang up on you? The line is really bad on Skype here, and I'm going to call you right back, and hopefully we got a clear line because it's starting to break up.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be right back. We're going to sit there and give it a second, and then we're going to recall back. That's the trouble with Skype. You can go days and days doing shows and not have a problem, and then all of a sudden you get a bad line or it drops out, and then it...
Hello?
Hey, Mark. Now I can tell that's a big improvement right here.
Oh, good. It was fine on this end. Are you live, Gary? Is your show live?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the fun of live TV and live radio.
Oh, yeah. What?
Was I breaking up so much that you couldn't follow what I was saying? Should we back up a minute?
No, it was okay. As this started, the last 60 seconds, it was really starting to, break up.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about Room with a Rack, which was one of the darker episodes, I thought. But at the end, a lot of humor comes in. And to your point, Gary, it was real humor, organic humor that was happening between Bob and Bill Cosby. And where you watched Man from U.N.C.L.E., which you mentioned, it was silly, artificial humor when they started injecting it into that show. So it was very different, real humor and fake humor.
Oh, yeah. And, why don't you tell the listeners how I Spy originated and how, I hate to say it, its co-host, in which, I really, you know what, it's a real bummer what's going on because, you can't find it anywhere on cable.
I know. Well, for anyone who's listening, any I Spy fans out there, we get to come out of the closet. This show was so popular. It was such a hit, and it was the hip show and great ratings and everything. And now it's not anywhere, and there's two reasons for that. One is because of what's happened with Bill, of course, and but even before then, because it was a privately owned TV show. Sheldon Leonard owned it. Bob Culp had a piece of it, and the other two producers had a piece of it, but it was mostly Sheldon Leonard. And so when he took the show off the network, it wasn't canceled. He took it off. And we can talk about that in a moment if you want. But it didn't have a big studio that's going to keep it out there. It did extremely well in syndication for several years, but after that, after a normal lifespan of a off-network show in syndication, you didn't have the big machine to keep it out there and keep finding new markets for it. So it's really kind of vanished from television in the last 20-plus years, even before Bill's problems. But, of course, the entire series is on DVD, Image Entertainment, and so you can buy that. It's remarkably cheap. You can get all 3 seasons in one box for like $40. And you can watch these things anytime you want, and read my book, and watch the episodes, and have a great old I Spy time.
Oh, yeah.
But you want to know how it started.
Yes.
Well, it's very curious that there's no created by credit on I Spy. It says, if you remember the opening title sequence, one of the best opening title sequences ever, that and Hawaii Five-0, I think, it says Sheldon Leonard Presents. And then it says Robert Culp, and then in smaller letters, Bill Cosby, and then I Spy. And nowhere in there does it say who created it. And the reason for that is because Bob Culp wrote the pilot script, the first script, and it was called Danny Doyle. And he had been offered a lot of series, including Man from U.N.C.L.E., which he turned down. And he wanted to do a show where he would be a spy that would have drama and comedy. That would be realistic drama, realistic comedy blended together, and travel the world. And he would be an athlete because Bob Culp was an athlete. He was a pole vaulter and a track guy, and so he wrote this character for himself, gave it to Carl Reiner, and Carl Reiner gave it to Sheldon Leonard, and Sheldon called Bob Culp in. Now, Culp was one of the top guest stars on TV. That's why he was being offered all these different shows like Man from U.N.C.L.E.